Awesome. Ooh, that's really loud. All right, well, welcome again this morning to New Life Church, and welcome to this campus. And I know Pastor Ryan is over at the other campus, and he is preaching this morning, and he's preaching on the same passage that I'm going to be preaching on. We're going to continue this morning on a new series that Pastor Kevin started last week called The Kingdom of Heaven. And there's so many different facets when it comes to the Kingdom of Heaven, and we're going to be looking in Matthew chapter 17 here later on. But I want to ask, and sometimes I do this where I ask a question, and usually I like responses because I like to interact that way. But like, what is your favorite thing that you have ever done or experience that you have ever done before that just left you in awe and wonder, or like, I can't wait to tell somebody about that, or it was so incredible that it changed my life? Does anybody have an experience like that? And you can't use Jesus because that's like the go-to answer. We already know that if you have had an encounter with Jesus, we already know that. So don't give that one. But does anybody have like an experience or something that they've been a part of that just changed their life, rocked their world, or anything like that? You guys are all dull then, I guess. Is that what it is? Okay. Nobody's gone on a trip or anything, and nobody's... Okay, Joe.
Washington, D.C. was school, and I got to go through the Holocaust Museum.
Okay, that's a good one. Absolutely. That's a good one. Okay. Yeah.
When I was in Jerusalem, I was at the courtyard where Peter denied Christ.
Ooh. Ooh, that would be cool.
It was life-changing.
Okay.
Because I sat there and I said, I could deny him too. And I imagined Jesus looking at me, and I felt that love. So that was life-changing.
Now, a question is also, have you ever had an experience where you tried to explain to somebody what this experience was, and you get to a point where like, you just had to be there? My kids, a lot of the time, try to explain videos to me, whether they send them to me, and I don't watch them most of the time because our humor is not the same. We are not the same. And a lot of the time, my kids will try to explain something like what happened throughout the day, and like a video, and they try to explain how funny it is or like what this is. And I'm like, by the end of it, I'm like, I'm not seeing it. I'm not getting it. I'm not comprehending. And then it comes to really, I guess you had to see it or you had to be there. How many of us have ever been in those kind of situations before where like, you just had to be there? I can't explain this to you in enough words or perspective. You just have to be there. You have to experience it. You have to encounter it. I did this a lot when I was working with the youth group, and we tried to explain Celebrate Life to people that have never been to Celebrate Life before. And it's a culmination of so many things that you don't have enough time in the day. And it's a great event where like we try to get parents to go, we try to get kids to go, and you try to explain this. You need to go. Well, why? Do you seriously ask me that question? I can't explain it. You just have to go. You have to be a part of it. And it's such a good thing. And now, you can ask me afterwards. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the teenagers explain that one to you. I know. So this morning, we're going to continue on with the kingdom of heaven. And we're going to turn to Matthew chapter 17. And we're going to read from verse 1 through 13 together. And I'm going to have you stand as we recite, or we speak over these and put them up on the screen there. I'm going to start with the first screen, and you guys can go with the second, and so forth, like we have normally done for some years now. So Matthew chapter 17, verse 1 says, 6 days later, Jesus took Peter and the two brothers, James and John, and led them up on a high mountain to be alone.
As the men watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed, so that his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as light.
Suddenly, Moses and Elijah appeared and began talking with Jesus.
Peter exclaimed, Lord, it's wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll make 3 shelters as memorials, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah.
But even as he spoke, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my dearly loved son, who brings me great joy. Listen to him."
The disciples were terrified and fell face down on the ground.
Then Jesus came over and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Don't be afraid."
And when they looked up, Moses and Elijah were gone, and they saw only Jesus.
As they went back down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead."
Then his disciples asked him, "Why do the teachers of religious law insist that Elijah must return before the Messiah comes?"
Jesus replied, "Elijah is indeed coming first to get everything ready.
But I tell you, Elijah has already come, but he wasn't recognized, and they chose to abuse him. And in the same way, they will also make the Son of Man suffer."
Then the disciples realized that he was talking about John the Baptist. Father, once again, we thank you that we get to come together into your house. Lord, that we get to participate in worship together, that we get to lift your name up on high. Lord, I pray as we continue on in this worship service, Lord, that you would guide the words that are spoken. Lord, that you would keep us from being distracted. Lord, that we keep reaching towards your kingdom. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. You may be seated. An encounter with Jesus can be life-changing. This is one of those things that would be very difficult to explain. It would be very difficult for people to just comprehend unless you were there. Guess what I saw? Guess what I just saw? There was this dude and this other dude along with Jesus. It became all white and it was very bright. You just had to be there. It's hard to explain that. Even reading the Word, even reading His Word, His Scriptures, it's hard to just explain that within the words until you experience. And I couldn't even imagine what that experience actually would be. Being in that place with Jesus, one, just knowing Jesus picked me. He took 3 of his closest disciples with him to be alone. Jesus knew what he was doing. He took them and he was planning on giving them a glimpse of his glory. But an encounter can be exciting and it can also be terrifying. That's our first point, is it can be exciting and terrifying. And yes, you can use those in the same sentence, because I did. It's up there. Verses 1-4 says 6 days later, we just read it, but it says 6 days later, Jesus took Peter and the 2 brothers, James and John. He led them up on a high mountain to be alone. And as the men watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed so that his face shone like the sun and his clothes became as white as light. Suddenly Moses and Elijah appeared and began talking with Jesus. Peter exclaimed, "Lord, it is wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll make 3 shelters as memorials, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." It's exciting. It's exciting to bring in the presence of God. It's exciting to have an encounter with him. I could imagine that the 3 of them already, they got picked. Out of the 12 and many other disciples that were with him, he took those 3. That right there, like, I wonder what's going to happen. He's always doing something different. He's always doing something neat. We're always seeing these miracles. We're seeing these things. Is he going to make us pray again? We don't know, but it's exciting. I want to know what's going on. So right there's excitement, anticipation of what Jesus is going to do next, because they already know some of the things that he's been doing and been on this road with them. They're very close to him. They're like, what else can he do to surprise us? It's like, but wait, there's more. And he begins this transfiguration, this transformation right in front of them, everything gets bright. It says his face shone like the sun. Now, I don't know about you, but I hate driving in the very early morning when that sun is just right there and it's in between your visor and the steering wheel. And you don't have sunglasses to block that out. Imagine feeling that way right there in the face of Jesus. And he's like, you got to put your hands up to block some of it because it's so bright. It's annoying. Not saying that Jesus is annoying, but you got to imagine and think about that. Like if you ever try to look directly into the sunlight, which you shouldn't do, disclaimer, don't do that. But if you ever did it, I'm sure all of us have tried at one point. They tell us not to do it. We're going to do it anyways because we want to prove them wrong. You realize it's bright. It hurts your eyes. It's annoying. And it says his face shone like the sun. So it's got to be bright. It's got to be to this point where it's so different, magnifying. That's exciting to be a part of that. He's like, he's never shown us this before. And I'm speaking more on this as we get to have these kind of encounters with him. The disciples got to encounter Jesus in a different way that they hadn't before. It wasn't the same old, same old. It wasn't the, oh, what miracle are we going to do today, God? It was something different. And they experienced it. And guess what? We get to experience the same thing. So I'm speaking more of how do we get to experience this same kind of encounter. Now, he might not shine like the sun for you. You might not see a vision of God in this way. Maybe you will. If he wants to reveal that, he will. But it's exciting. And when you get excited about something, about being a part of it, there's kind of like this overwhelming feeling, this overwhelming emotions. And we experience a whole bunch of different things, whether it's joy, whether it's gratitude, whether it's fear. And it can come out in many different ways for each of us, depending on our personalities sometime. Some of us might not be those social butterfly and like think this is awesome. Some of us might just kind of stand off in the back like, that's really cool. Or they might be contemplative. They might be just observant. So you could feel many different things. When you encounter God, you can encounter joy. John the Baptist felt joy when he was around Jesus, even before he was born. Luke chapter 1, verse 41. At the sound of Mary's greeting, Elizabeth's child leapt within her, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. The baby leapt. That would feel weird. You can explain that to me all you want. I'm never going to experience that. I'm just telling you. It's not going to happen. And it's not going to be a you had to be there kind of situation. It's just not going to happen. But John the Baptist felt joy in the presence of Jesus. Even though Jesus wasn't even born yet, John wasn't even born yet felt this joy within his presence that he did something about it. Got excited. I don't know if you can really jump in a womb or really leap in a womb either. Would that just be swimming? Dumb thoughts by Brett. That's what it was. I really just thought of like, that's really not jumping or leaping because there's no solid ground. Never mind. We're going to move. We're going to move on. I'll cut that part out, by the way. You could feel gratitude. The woman at Jesus' feet. Luke chapter 7, verse 36 through 39. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with them. So Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. And when a certain immoral woman from that city heard that he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him and at his feet, weeping. Her tears fell on his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. And she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. And when the Pharisee who invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She is a sinner. This woman was excited to be in the presence of God and knew exactly what was going on, and yet she still approached him. An immoral woman coming into the presence of God. A sinful woman coming into the presence of God and said, I'm still going to show you gratitude. I'm going to give you the best that I have. I'm going to wash his feet with this perfume. I'm going to dry it off with my hair. I'm going to kiss his feet. Now, they didn't have covered feet like we have covered feet today, because you can imagine how dirty, dusty stuff that they've stepped in, and yet she was there at his feet. So this is the best that I can give. This perfume was worth, I believe, 2 years worth of wages. You can correct me if I was wrong on that one, but expensive perfume, much better than Chanel No. 5. And yet she doused his feet and she gave her best because she wanted to be in his presence. She wanted to have an encounter with him. Didn't matter what everybody else thought. We have a thought of gratitude, an expression of gratitude. And sometimes when we're in the presence of God, or when we're in these situations, when you have an encounter with somebody or have this experience with something, sometimes you just do weird things. I don't know if the woman at Jesus' feet, if that's what exactly she planned to do. Said, I just want to wash his feet. I don't know. Because usually anointing and everything like that goes from the head down. And she started from the feet. She went to his feet right away. We hear Peter in verse 4. He said, Lord, it's wonderful to be here. It is wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll make these shelters as a memorial for you and the other 2 dudes that are with you. Kind of a strange thought, kind of a strange way of going about it, but there was a reason for it. But sometimes when we get in the presence of somebody, like, you never know what to say. And sometimes, like, I've seen videos of people meeting their celebrity, not celebrity crushes or whatever, but, people that they admire and stuff, and they finally, like, they surprise them and like, hi. It's like you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. And like, I baked a cake. I don't even bake anything. But Peter just says, hey, I'll make a memorial for you and him too. That excitement sometimes makes us do weird things. It's okay. Because we also want to do something in return. In return for that presence, in return for that encounter, I want to give something, because that's what we generally would do. I want to give of myself. I want to do something for you. But when Jesus breaks through our current understanding of him to show us something deeper, it's an awesome experience. But it can also be terrifying. When we encounter him, sometimes it can be a terrifying experience. And I don't mean like we need to be scared of God. The disciples were all excited about being there until this voice came from the clouds. And I can imagine God's voice being just like this deep, loud, booming voice. This is my son. Listen to him. And like, whatever it may be to you, like me, I think it's much deeper and much more just booming. That bass of a voice just fills you. And like, my goodness, what just happened? I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to be in this presence right now. I'm a little afraid. I don't know what to do next. it can be overwhelming. Even overwhelming can make you a little bit afraid. It can make you a little bit terrified, because a lot of the time we think, I'm not worthy to be in your presence. I'm not worthy to sit at your feet. I'm not worthy of you even just speaking to me and directly to me. Sometimes I like to use my voice to command people. It's fun for me because I have a deeper voice. And sometimes I do it as a joke, and I've done this with my kids. You can stop people in their tracks, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" That's the dad voice. I can do the dad voice. But I also remember back in discipleship when I was part of leadership and everything, and we had these students, and I'm talking like we got like 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. They weren't kids back at that time for me because I was only a few years older than them. But I was in leadership, and at one point, this girl was being annoying. And I finally said, "You, go stand in the corner." She's like, "What?" "Go stand in the corner now." She went and stood in the corner. She listened to me because I gave her a command, because I used my pre-dad voice. Because I wasn't a dad at that point, but I was practicing is what I was doing. She's a little scared of me. Her name was Felicia. Actually, it was. She was a terrific young lady at that time, but she was, you could get her to do about anything. But yeah, I made a 20-year-old go stand in a corner just because I could. But sometimes in the presence of God, when we feel it, and we hear, and we hear this voice, and we see this presence, we see something change right in front of us, and we don't know that it's coming, and we're not expecting it. Sometimes it can frighten us. Because like I said, sometimes we feel, I'm not worthy to be in that presence. I don't know what to do. Daniel chapter 8, verse 17, as Gabriel approached the place where I was standing, I became so terrified that I fell with my face to the ground. "Son of man," he said, "you must understand that the events that you have seen in your vision relate to a time of the end." Also in that same book, chapter 10, verse 9, it also says, "Then I heard the man speak, and when I heard the sound of his voice, I fainted and lay there with my face to the ground." And that's a pretty powerful voice right there to make you faint. Maybe he locked his knees. Chapter 10 and verse 15 of same book says, "While he was speaking to me, I looked down at the ground, unable to say a word." Sometimes, even within that, we're terrified. We even feel shame a little bit because there's that unworthiness. Like, I don't know what. Sometimes we think, even within our minds and our hearts, like, I know I should do something. I know I should maybe even apologize. Maybe I should say something. I just don't know. I got nothing. I've got nothing. That can be a scary experience, though, too. Revelation 1:17, "When I saw him, I fell at his feet as if I were dead. But he laid his right hand on me and said, 'Don't be afraid. I am the first and the last.'" Sometimes when we're in his presence, it can be a scary situation or a scary encounter, but it's okay. Once again, Jesus touches them and says, "Don't be afraid." He said that a lot to them. Don't be afraid. It's just me. Even what we read in Revelation 1:17, where he says, "Don't be afraid. I am the first and the last." Don't be scared. It is just me. I'm here to protect. There's nothing to fear from God. Yes, we have an all-powerful God that can do a lot, but it's not something that we should just fear or be terrified of. It's like that holy fear, absolutely. But we shouldn't be afraid of him. He says, don't be afraid. Sometimes when we think of that, and we're in that time where we don't feel worthy, sometimes it's through our convictions as well. Sometimes it's through that leading and guiding, but we are not to be afraid. So we get to an encounter can be revealing. An encounter can be revealing. When you are in the presence of God, he gives them from himself. He shows you maybe a glimpse of his plan, of his thoughts, his desires. If he were to share everything with us, we would just explode. I think it would be too much for us. If he just revealed, just for your own life, I think you would just explode. You would do more than just faint. But an encounter with him can be revealing. In his presence can be revealing. Verse 5 says, but even as he spoke, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice of the cloud said, this is my dearly loved son who brings me great joy. Listen to him. Right there, that is God revealing that Jesus is his son. Even though Jesus has been preparing them for all of this, now you get it from the source. Truly revealing, this is the glory of God. Jesus is the incarnate Son of God. So this is my son, my beloved son. Listen to him. They learn more about Jesus that is important. His nature as a son of God is clearly established. When we have a vision of God, I think that it almost always gives us a fuller understanding of his glory and majesty. So it helps us to understand our relationship with him as well. But I also believe and think through our encounters with him that his plan is also revealed as well. God will reveal himself to us. But I believe he will also reveal a glimpse of his plan as well, as he did with the disciples. In verse 11, Jesus replied, Elijah is indeed coming first to get everything ready. But I tell you that Elijah has already come. But he wasn't recognized, and they chose to abuse him. And in the same way, they will also make the Son of Man suffer. Then the disciples realized that he was talking about John the Baptist. This is God's plan, that Jesus is going to suffer. They were privy to this information because they were chosen by Jesus to have this encounter, to have this glimpse, and to have this be revealed by the source, by the one true God. Says, this is my son whom I love. Listen to him. He's already been revealing things to the disciples. This is just a reiteration of what Jesus has been telling them. Like, I'm going to go away for a while. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to take place. Sooner or later, I'm not going to be here, and you're going to carry on things. God's like, it's exactly what it is. Listen to him. He's my son. He's telling the truth. Listen to him. Jesus makes it clear that just as John suffered, he too would suffer. This would also affect them as well. See, it was not just about Jesus, but it's going to affect their band of misfits. This is going to affect them as well. How does our encounter with Jesus, our encounter with God, how does that affect us? How does his plan, what he reveals to us, how does that affect you and I? How does that affect you within your relationship with them? And it could be different things, being a part of a ministry. Or maybe he reveals that you're to speak to somebody, that you're not sure how to do that. Maybe you're giving godly advice. Maybe you begin to pray for somebody that affects you and somebody else. God will reveal that to you if you allow it. But the thing is, you have to have an encounter and be in his presence for him to do that. You can't just speculate, well, this is what I believe God has for me. Well, have you included him in that one? Have you sought him out? Have you prayed? Have you gotten into his word? Well, no. Then how do you know that's what God is leading you to do? I want us to be careful when we use things like that we are really getting it from the source. I'm just saying, well, just on my own feelings, my own actions, that's what I believe is going to happen. Well, that's okay if you believe what's going to happen, but don't stamp God's name on there. Say, thus saith the Lord. Done. You have to have the encounter with him. You have to be in his presence in order to see and feel and know when he reveals things. Maybe it's a special task that he has for you as well. Could be anything. Could be the weirdest thing. We find that littered throughout the Bible, that God asks people to do weird things. I think it has to do with a lot of trust, though. Trust me. But it's the last of my food. Trust me. Give it to this man. Ananias was sent to tell Paul how he would suffer for Jesus. I don't want to go speak to that guy. He kills Christians. Are you sure? This is what I'm revealing to you. Okay. Here's the other part of it. An encounter with Jesus, an encounter with God can be intriguing. And I know that's a weird word to use, but it's intriguing. God is intriguing because it's like, what's going to be next? Like I said, these disciples that went up to the mountain with Jesus, these 3 guys that Jesus picked out of the 12 that were even closest with him, he picks 3 that were closer. That's intriguing to me. That was probably intriguing to them. What is going to happen next? What do you have for us? Why don't the other guys get to come? Did you draw straws? Did you vote them off like Survivor or anything like that? What's going to be next? In verse 9, he says, as they went back down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, don't tell anyone what you've seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. I can't even tell anybody about it. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I can't believe I was a part of that. And now you're telling me not to say anything. Ooh, it gets me, that's a little frustrating. Because I'm telling you, like, if you've ever been a part of a cool experience, you want to share it with people. We're like, especially if it's like a sibling, guess what I got to do? And you didn't. Well, the brothers got to go together, so it didn't matter. But he says, don't tell anybody until the time is right. This encounter left the disciples with questions and wanting to know more. Now, at work, us managers are reading a book. And we're supposed to be doing, not a book report, but basically we're supposed to give our thoughts on a chapter. We're reading a chapter a week. And it's not a very big book, and it's not very long chapters. In fact, the chapters are like 2 pages at most. And so they you get the point of it, the main point, and I'm thinking, when are you going to go into the next part? Well, that's going to be covered in the next few chapters. I want it now. I'm like, we're not really supposed to go on, but I want to because I'm intrigued, because a thought has gotten there and it's just not letting me go, and I want to move on. I want to move forward. I want to know the next. It's like watching a TV show when they leave you on a big cliffhanger, and now you got to wait for after the summertime in order for it to come back, in order to remember what you actually watched, and I want it now. I don't want to do the binge watching thing. Kids have no idea what it used to be like. I'm just saying. I don't have to wait through commercials and crap like that. They get it on demand. They get to binge watch. We had to wait. If you missed the episode, you had to wait until it did reruns. But things like that are intriguing. It might be your favorite book. It might be a video game. It might be certain songs or albums, stuff like that. Whatever it might be to you, you could probably identify with saying there's something intriguing about it. I want more of it, that I want to be a part of it. I don't want to be held at bay. And I feel like Jesus is kind of holding them at bay, like, don't tell anybody about it right now. There's going to be a certain time. There's going to be a specific time. I want more. I want to know more. Why'd you pick us? Why'd you choose us? Why'd you show us this? What does this exactly mean? Go back to what my Father said. Listen to him. This is my plan. Okay, I get that, but why? There's more. I got more questions, Jesus. I got more questions. It's like the kid, when you talk to a kid and you give them the specifics and you give them all the time and everything like that, and they're like, why? Because I said, why? Because this is why? I hated the why phase. I did. Because it didn't matter what you said. It was just going to come back to why. But I have more questions. I want to know more. I want to be a part of it. I want to know what's next. I'm intrigued. You held that lure right out there for me, and I took it, and now I want more. The disciples were probably filled with such emotion throughout that time. And I couldn't even imagine, once again, it's like a had to be there kind of thing to experience that. It doesn't mean that I haven't experienced God. It doesn't mean that I haven't experienced Jesus, but that was a specific thing that I couldn't even imagine. Reading these words and being a part of what they saw and experienced right there on the mountain had to be their experience. And they're probably filled with such emotion that they didn't know how to necessarily process it. He said, Peter was like, hey, I'll make some memorials for you. I don't know what to say. And Peter's usually one that says a lot. Sometimes we have the questions of, how do I process my experience with him? Do I let everybody know what I experienced and what I did and what God is doing through me? How do I convey that without sounding crazy? How do I convey that to the ones that are lost? How do I convey that to other believers? What do I do with this excitement? How do I explain to them? How do I put it into words? I'm not the best person with words. Sometimes when I speak, I can stammer over things and I can be like, I baked a cake. If you asked me to write it down, I could not write it down for you. but I can tell you one-on-one. Maybe some people are better at writing them down and how to regulate that. The disciples were probably thinking, if I told the disciples, what would they think of this? Would that cause division? Would it just be like talking to a wall? Well, you had to be there, I guess. Well, why didn't he pick me? Why didn't I get to go? Why didn't I get? And then they go to Jesus. Jesus, why didn't you take us up there? Well, it was a small ledge, and we had already invited 2 other guys to be there along. They just kind of appeared. We don't know. Sometimes reading these things, it intrigues me, like, what is God really doing in the lives? What is he doing in my life? How do I get to apply this to me? How do I get to apply this to my walk with Christ? Where is my encounter? Where is my experience? I get to have the experience every day. You get to have the experience and encounter with God every single day. And when we have an encounter with Jesus, it makes us want to know him more. What's next? What's more? I have questions. I just want to sit in your presence right now. I just need calmness in my life. I just need the strength in my life. Just need this protection. God, what do you have for me? What's next in my life? What do I get to do? What do you desire out of me? God, why? Why? Just like a drink of water to a thirsty person, a sip, just not enough. Sometimes it leaves us wanting more, just a taste. The disciples had an incredible experience with Jesus on that mountain. They saw something they never had before. Probably left more questions than anything. But we can have the same kind of experience and same kind of encounter with him that we don't have to go up to a mountain to do, because Jesus paved the way for us. You might not see a face like the sun, might not be all bright and shiny, might not be a big booming voice that says, hey, listen. Might not be that for you. It might just be a quiet time with him as you're reflecting. It might be a time as you're reading his scriptures. You might be left with more questions sometimes as you spend time with him, and he just gives you a glimpse and it reveals a little portion of things. The question is do you want more? Do you want more of him? Do you want that encounter? Do you want his presence? The other thing is, do you get excited when you're in his presence? I like that it says, that Peter had said, it is wonderful for us to be here. It is good for us to be here. Do you ever feel that way in his presence? God, it's just so good to be here. Maybe some days you don't feel like that. Maybe some days it's just that. God, it's just good to be alive. God, it's just good that you're here with me. God, it's just good that I have a place to go. God, it's just good that you can meet me where I'm at, because I know I don't deserve it. God, it's good for you to accept me because I know I did wrong. But it's good to be here. I'm going to ask the worship team to come up, and we're going to do that final song again. I'm going to open up the altars as well. And my encouragement, my challenge is just to come spend time in his presence. Okay? Means maybe you've never come and met him before. Maybe you haven't taken that time and said, God, I'm here. It's just good to be here. I would encourage you. You can come to the altar. You can be at your seat. But come have an experience with him. Come and have an encounter with him that is just between you and him. It's not the person that's sitting around you, or if you see somebody come up, and it's not a pressure moment or anything like that. Just want to create the space for it. So as we begin to play that, and just take the time. That's my encouragement. Take your time with him. I know it's the noontime hour right now. We're not held back by the service, the online or anything like that today. So we're not in a rush. Not trying to draw it out. But I want to create the opportunity for you to be able to spend time with him.